Good morning, Dan and Amy. And interesting piece in the Chicago Tribune from Clarence Page, who's a member of the Trib Ed Board. I think he just celebrated 50 years at the Tribune. 50
Wow,
years.
that's a huge accomplishment. Congratulations.
He talked about why he has a collection of racist memorabilia. He also recounted a visit to the National Museum of African American History and Culture at in the Jim Crow Museum and the Jim Crow Museum at Ferris State University in Michigan. And so, it sounds like an odd thing. Why would you keep or why would you even memorialize in a museum racist memorabilia? Well, there's a purpose to it, and maybe that informs what the approach should be and the conversation should be surrounding monuments, scholarship in the classroom, American history, diversity of viewpoints. Maybe there's something to be gleaned from why Clarence Page keeps this racist memorabilia. For more on this, let's ask him. Clarence Page, Pulitzer Prize winning syndicated columnist, Washington-based member of the Trib's Ed Board, as I mentioned. Clarence, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. And so why do you keep this collection that you describe in your column?
Good question. I wasn't planning to be a collector of racist memorabilia. As I recounted in my column, though, I was back in the 70s. I was over at some antique shop on Wells Street. It isn't around anymore, but I saw up on the wall something that really grabbed me, riveted my attention, and I said, I got to have it. And it was a sign that said colored waiting room. And under it were the initials of the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad, which went out of business like in the 40s or 50s. And why did that grab me? Immediately I flashed back to when I was a little kid. My parents were taking me down south to what we call the old country, but you all know as Alabama. And first time, a cognizant time that I learned what segregation was. And we would sit on the hard benches in the colored waiting room waiting for the train to change in Nashville. And that was had great profound meaning to me and a lot of other black folks, to say the least. And I said, I got to have this sign. And I asked the guy, how much is it? And he said, well, it's $100, but for you, $79. I'd really rather you have it than some white guy who's just going to put it up over his basement bar for the giggles. And I so typical sales talk, but that's okay. I was ready to get this sign. And, why do I have to have it? I just have to say it was just gut personal. But later on, I was visiting some friends at their house, and I saw they had these Aunt Jemima magnets on their refrigerator, as well as a bunch of Pickaninny dolls and a lot of other old caricatures of black folks from the minstrel era. And they said the same thing. I just had to have it. and when I met the woman who's not my wife, she had some other items in her house, the Pickaninny bookends, which you can barely see in the picture there in the paper. But it's like it turns out that a lot of black folks collect this memorabilia. And when I first time I wrote about it years ago, I got a bunch of white folks sending me their memorabilia.
Really? What did they send you?
Everybody's got something in their attic that they got from an aunt or uncle or a great grandparent or something, and they don't know what to do with it. They don't want to throw it away to respect their own memories, but they don't want to publicly display it either. And so they asked me if I'd like to have it. And later on, I did a TV feature on back in the 90s or late 80s on PBS. And again, I got people. Some people without even writing to me, just sent me a package with their dolls in it or whatever. Now, after I wrote this column, I've got people who are going to be sort of sending me stuff now. I'm waiting for it to arrive, which to add to my collection.
Well, Clarence, what was the craziest or what the most memorable thing that you've gotten from a viewer or a reader?
Well, maybe it's my mind, but most memorable were a couple that I didn't even want to talk about in the column because they're obscene. gestures.
Mm.
Novelties that were used that show black characters who are one I mentioned in my column, which was I now have just a little a carved wooden alligator with a black man in its mouth. You can see the head, and it's actually a toothpick holder, and the head is the top of a toothpick. I mean, there's all manner of things I do have in the photos, though. Besides the colored waiting room sign, I've got two Aunt Jemimas, which really inspired me to write this column. I've got an old Little Black Sambo book, which is exactly the same as the one I had in the first grade. And I guess I'm most proud of my Darky toothpaste, which is a toothpaste sold in Asia. It's still sold. It's a company co-owned by I think Palmolive, an American firm. Anyway, it's got a minstrel on it, and it's called Darky toothpaste in English. And I'm told that the Chinese side, the translation is black man's toothpaste. and about 10, 15 years ago or so, they changed the name from Darky to Darley with an L instead of a K. But they didn't change the Chinese characters, so they still read Chinese.
Well, so you're taking this all in very good humor, and of course you've lived through this period, part of this period as well, the part of the Jim Crow era.
Now. That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
but so why? What is it that this memorabilia says to you? What is it? What can it teach us?
Well, the best reason I have it is I've got a son. He's 30 years old now. But when I tell my son about the Jim Crow era, I've got evidence right here. And I mean, sometimes there's so much stuff that was so bizarre. You sometimes wonder, did that really happen, or is my memory fade? Whatever. Well, I've got evidence now. I can look up at my colored waiting room signs. Oh yeah, we did go through that, didn't we? And I've got a lovely little pegboard which is popular in collecting circles, which has a mammy figure on it, and at the top it says "Reckon on Needs," and you can put your peg in there for different food items before you go shopping. And this sort of thing was all a product of the Jim Crow era, when post Reconstruction, the South was trying in every way to reestablish the racial caste system. They did a heck of a job of it. And it resulted in the civil rights movement that I grew up with back in the 60s and the 50s. And then you have the kind of the politics of that era really are reflected in how much the culture has changed. The fact that now white folks are hiding it and black folks want to buy it and collect it and put it on display, like at the Smithsonian, the African American Museum, et cetera. Shows you just how much things have changed. And I think that's an important thing for us to remember, is how much things have changed and how much Americans are capable of change.
Yeah, I think that is a great point, and it also speaks to the need to preserve our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so we have some basis to measure, as you say, right?
That's right, absolutely. And I love my Aunt Jemima, by the way, because my mother loved it. She bought it when I was 4 years old to help me save money for college. She was planning way ahead. And only we called it the Aunt Laura doll because it does resemble my mother's Aunt Laura. And so it was something I tell people, I love it like a member of the family, because it almost is. Whereas Aunt Jemima in the black community, believe me, when you grow up, that's a real insult, like Uncle Tom. And so, and by the way, Uncle Tom, I think, got a bad rap too. But you got to read the book to understand what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Well, reading the book. Oh, there's a concept that is fallen out of favor too, and it's not just with respect to Harriet Beecher Stowe, but so your perspective on the importance of history to understand the progression. Then how do you react to what you're seeing across the country with respect to monuments and books in particular courses or particular institutions and television shows and sort of all of the self-censorship and sort of the tearing down and many people tearing down things that they do not understand?
Well, that's right. Actually, I've often said, because I've become a student of the Civil War, really. and what that means for our country. And I've often said that black folks and Southern white folks, and I mean Southern heritage white folks, those who really revere the Confederate flag, et cetera, we've got one thing in common, and something uniquely in common, and that is we got really long memories. It's like this, you think the Civil War was back in the 1860s. We think it was last week. And I mean that's something I've actually made connections with members of the Sons of the Confederacy, et cetera, by just sitting and talking about the war. And was it the Civil War, or was it the war between the states? Was it the war of Northern aggression, as a lot of Southerners like to call it? And it's really, I mean, the very fact that even though we're on opposite sides on this politically, et cetera, we connect because we care. And that's one thing that Southern white folks really want, is to get past the stereotypes and say, hey, I've got a voice too. And I think that's something that we hear in politics every so often. And so it's been very educational for me. But with the statue controversy, as I have said, no, the statues were not actually built during the war or immediately after it. They were really built during the Jim Crow era, right, as one more sign of white supremacy. But when you go out and just tear it down like a vandal, then you get reckless. You are destroying history. I'd rather put them in a museum or like in Germany, they have parks to commemorate the old East Germany, the old communist domination. So you can see those Marx and Lenin statues and all that. Over here, some of these folks going out, there was one statue I heard about, maybe you did too, was a statue of a leading abolitionist.
Yes,
right,
sure.
And it was torn down as if he was some Confederate general. Yeah, exactly. And that's just recklessness and counterproductive. It tells me they don't care about history, and I do care about it.
Well, Clarence, how do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement?
I think that I criticized their name from the very beginning because it's too easily turned against you. But what you're going to do with young folks? What impresses me now is how much it's been embraced. We've had these marches and all, most of which have been peaceful, thank God. And like here in Washington, I was at a march and I said, there's more Black Lives Matter signs here than black people. And it was true. Wow. You look at these demonstrations, look at the pictures, mostly white folks, mostly young white folks. And I said, that's great. This is the future coming. I'm old enough to remember. I was at the Million Man March. I remember Dr. King's march. I watched it on TV all day long. And they were mostly, overwhelmingly black. There were a lot of white folks there, of course, in both cases, but they were overwhelmingly black. This time it was white people really taking the lead to get some justice in this awful issue that has arisen in the wake of the George Floyd death. And that tells me, that, well, I mean, as an old man, I have a little feeling of confidence here. And as my son just says, I've been telling you that, Dad. And I say, okay.
Well, so, I mean, do you, just sort of fundamentally right now, do you think that a real cultural issue, the cultural issue should be race-based, or should it be socioeconomic in nature? In other words, is this a black-white issue in 21st century America more so than a poverty issue, or is it more a poverty issue than it is a racial issue?
I've always pulled for a class approach, a class-oriented approach, and opportunity-oriented. And I hope to have a book out soon, unless I get off my butt and do it. But because I've seen I used to be in the war on poverty back in the late '60s. I spent a summer working in Appalachia among mostly poor white folks. And, I know a lot of folks who had it worse off than I did growing up. The only thing is they didn't have the segregation. So race is always an issue out there. And these days, they talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. What intrigues me is how, with this generation, they are leaderless. They don't have a Dr. King or a Malcolm or whatever. These are leaderless movements, very much in keeping. Well, like the what was that movement that a few summers ago was Occupy
Wall Street. Yeah.
Right, another leaderless movement. which like I said, to me, this is not the way to organize, but this is the Twitter age. And that's why you have people coming out now and expressing their indignation regardless of race or class. They will organize around whatever issue is powerful enough to move them. And so I feel like we're moving in that direction now, where we're starting to realize this is supposed to be the land of opportunity, and we got to extend that opportunity to make sure everybody has it.
Are you afraid at all that the sort of anti-racist intellects, the Robin DiAngelos and the Ibram Kendis, who suggest that there's no such thing as not being racist? You are racist, and you basically just need to sort of manage it for the rest of your life. Do you think that sort of obsession and the arguments they're putting forward? I mean, Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility is the #1 bestseller on Amazon, right? Is that helpful to advancing social cohesion, do you think?
In fact, all the books on race relations are #1 sellers nowadays.
Yeah, well.
There's another remarkable phenomenon that has occurred. But I'm not afraid of the R word. I first heard that everybody's racist a line from Dick Gregory back in the 60s when he came to our campus. And he was saying, we've all got some line you don't cross. And he said, I draw the line at if my wife leaves me for another man, I hope he's black. And I mean, everybody laughed.
Yeah.
But he's right. We all have some line of what prejudice, racism, whatever, and we need to deal with it realistically instead of just reflexively saying, "Well, I'm not racist," because people think that a racist has to be somebody who's got Ku Klux Klan robes in their closet or something.
I understand that. I understand.
We're just talking about really the prejudices we have. We need to get past that.
No, I understand that, and having a frank discussion like that doesn't frighten me either. But what does is the purge that's associated with it today. That any sort of hint, however innocuous, and then you mob justice is meted out for someone with respect to their professional career or their kids' school or what have you, digging into tweets when kids are pre-adolescent and so forth, like we've seen, and doxing people, and all of those emblems of the purge. That's the problem to me.
Yeah, the cancel culture, as it's commonly called, and I've written against that. Or at least to put it into perspective, I think that, first of all, somebody who commits a racial faux pas, if it's their first time and they genuinely didn't mean to be offensive, I believe you should give them a break. I believe that we're all engaged in an education process. I've offended people without meaning to, whether it's around race or various other issues. Heaven knows my wife has had to pull my coat more than once or twice about my sexism. And I think we all need to give each other a little bit more of a break here.
Yeah.
You mentioned humor earlier. We got to have it. I have my biggest problem with people who just have what I call irony deficiency. They just don't see the obvious humor in these situations, and that's really the best way for us to get past that and really educate each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not particularly charitable to go around trying to jackpot people all the time, is it?
That's right.
Exhausting.
It's also disunifying.
Yes, it's a very small way to live. He is Clarence Page, Pulitzer Prize-winning syndicated columnist, Washington-based member of the Chicago Trib's Ed Board. Clarence, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Take
Love
care.
the article. Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show. More Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest-growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hey all, this is Jim Carr, co-host of the #1 rated manufacturing podcast, Making Chips, and a customer of Signature Bank. If you're a crazy busy company owner like me, you know that success in business is all about relationships. While many banks call themselves a relationship bank, Signature knows how to do it right. They made the banking relationship easy and on my timeline. Their technology, coupled with the attention from my personal banker, made the transaction as effortless and seamless as possible. Much thanks to Signature Bank for supporting Car Machine and Tool when we needed it most. Bam.
Signature Bank is looking for their next success story. To learn more about turning your business vision into reality, visit signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Transferring paper files to digital used to be complicated and expensive. Data and document capture had many IT layers involved. It was expensive, time-consuming, and labor-intensive. Not anymore, thanks